Async work is still new. Let's be honest. Last couple of years, we were forced into this async distributed world, and we're still trying to figure it out. So it's okay. Now, as we progress, async and distributed are here to stay. That is the future. So today, I actually want to share with you some tips and tricks to help encourage you to practice more async in your world. Now, you don't have to go all out and do all of these, but I encourage you to kind of stretch outside your comfort zone. Try some things on for size, see how they fit, and also come up with your own techniques based off these. Your goal is to reduce the number of meetings, improve the amount of time you can focus on getting work done, and help encourage your distributed team to work in its best way possible. And honestly, async techniques like these will help you get there. So let's take a look. The first tip I have for you is more of a mindset tip. And this is the idea of start slow. Change is hard. We're still struggling with this. We see this demand to come back into the office or stay remote. People are struggling with how do I work in an async way? So be patient. What I encourage you to do in this case, focus on introducing small changes. Maybe you're going to bring in a Confluence page with an agenda to your next meeting. That's not forcing a ton of async work on people, but what it is just showing them a new way to approach async from their world. Next, push yourself to experiment. Go out there and actually spend some time figuring out what tools, what techniques might work best. Be willing to experiment across different things. One of the things that I'm doing personally is I'm using both Jira Work Management and Trello to manage my work. And I'm trying to figure out which one is going to be the best one for the job. The thing is I need to provide visibility to my leadership, but I also want to be able to work in a way that fits me best. So I encourage you to do the same. Find those things that you could try and see what kind of hypothesis you can generate around those. What are you trying to test out? And then keep testing. Ask your team for feedback asynchronously. Am I right? Go out there and talk with your team. Find out, hey, if we couldn't meet together, how could we collaborate? Actually survey them and find out what things are they doing? What things are they trying? Because just like me encouraging you to try things, I'm sure they are too. Maybe throw together a whiteboard and have them throw their ideas on there. The goal is to make this not just a you process, but to make it an us process. Because async distributed work is not just about a person, it's about a team. It's important when we're working in an async distributed way to establish a working agreement. If you've not done one of these before, go check out the play in the Atlassian team playbook. It's all about establishing intentional things that we agree to work with each other on. I like to talk about working agreements as making the implicit explicit. When are we going to work together? What hours? Are we going to have meetings? If so, are we going to bring certain things like maybe agendas of those? Identify what are the things that are important to each of the team members on your team to work in a distributed async way and incorporate those in. The cool thing about a working agreement too is it's not a one-time done thing. It's a living and breathing document. So as you go out there and try some things, always come back and say, hey, is our agreement still valid? Do we need to update this? That way for your team, you have that explicit understanding of how we want to work together in an async distributed world. Next, do the pre-work. Regardless of the fact, we know we're always going to have sync meetings. The worst thing that can happen with a sync meeting is that you don't do the pre-work. You don't go and establish things like an agenda or send out reading material maybe a couple days before. You go into a meeting and you hope to wing it, it's going to fail. So do the pre-work. Plan that out. Try to encourage async practices by, like I said, sending out a document 3 days before and encouraging that kind of asynchronous collaboration prior to the event. Next, be intentional with how you use those async collaboration tools. Tools like email as well as Slack or other messaging tools can rule over you with notifications. I don't know about you, but when I see a notification come up on my screen, maybe an email or a new Slack message, I almost want to immediately go over there and respond. That's not the purpose of async communication. Instead, set aside some intentional time on your calendar to respond to those things. Maybe it's in the afternoon is when you focus best on getting work done. So in the mornings, you actually spend your time responding to Slack messages and emails. Set aside that time and be intentional. Finally, avoid the burnout problem. Async distributed work has done tons for how people work. It's enabled people to work where they want, when they want. It's fantastic. But the dark side is that it also causes us to sometimes be on all the time. I have teammates that are in Europe as well as in Australia. And when I am on at home in my personal time, I tend to find myself getting onto email or Slack, and I notice that they've responded to something and I want to respond to it right away. The thing is if we don't set those personal boundaries, you will burn yourself out. So be intentional about it. Just like we've talked about before, set those working hours as well as an understanding around when we get back on messages in your team agreement. Go ahead and turn off those notifications. I always encourage you to get rid of applications like Slack and email from your phone and be intentional about using it at your workstation. Again, if we don't take control of this, it will take control of you. So be intentional with your time, set those boundaries, and make sure that you don't go all up Human Torch-like and burn out on us.